Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power of Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. As always, you're a very grateful host. You guys all know that already, though. Come on. You've been here for a while. We've been doing this for a minute. We have an awesome guest for you today. We really do. But before we get to this awesome person talking about these really cool topics that we're going to talk about today, I do want to thank all of you folks. When we made the shift to 5 days a week, I wasn't sure how that was going to go. That was a leap of faith, to say the least. You folks have shown up with bells on, and when you increase to 5 days a week and your downloads go up, I mean that means you guys are really lining up and taking care of our program. Without everything that you do for us, without all the likes, the shares, the follows, and all of the comments and everything else, if you're not out there doing all that, I'm not over here doing all this. I have nobody to talk to and nothing to say. So I really appreciate all of it. You folks are making this dream a reality for me. And that's why we bring remarkable men like this on today, because we want to help you make your dreams a reality for you. Before we get any further, you guys all know what it is. You know what time it is. It's time to pay a couple bills. So I think I better stop, pause for a moment, take a sip of my preferred beverage. Wow, better every time I have it. And I've been drinking this all day. This is my eighth interview of the day, and I'm still going strong because of, and you got it right, Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Deep, dark, rich, bold, beautiful, just like my wife. But I don't want to hear you guys saying that. All right. They brew a mean bean. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. It's a delicious cup of Joe. They support veterans, which is why we support them. You all know how important veterans are to this program, and we don't make any bones about that. Go to at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Tell them what you think. Tell them Power Man sent you. Let me get one more of these before I get going because I got a feeling this guy's got more energy than I do. I'm going to have to keep up. All right, here we go. This guy's quite the story. From the music world to the world of psychotherapy, we have a gentleman, and I'm just going to read this real quick. He has a program called Heartfinders. All right. And it's about a self cultivation course to be your best self, feel great about yourself, have peace of mind, and find fulfillment. Folks, I mean, if that doesn't sell you right there, I was like, sign me up. How do I get some of this? Please welcome to the program, Dr. Glenn Berger. How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having me on this podcast, Rory.
Thanks. I
Very,
appreciate
very
it.
much looking forward to doing this with you today.
Me too. Well, hey, I mean, I gave you a little bit of a preamble, but tell our listeners, who is Dr. Berger? What's he about? And how'd you end up getting here?
Yeah, so my story began when I was about 17 years old. I had the incredible fortune of working at one of the greatest recording studios of all time, a place called A&R in New York City. And I was mentored to a Lifetime Achievement Grammy Award winning producer engineer, a guy named Phil Ramone. And working at that studio, I got to work with some of the greatest artists of that era, 1970s New York, including Bob Dylan and Mick Jagger and Frank Sinatra and Steely Dan, and the list goes on and on. And those were incredible experiences, and I got to learn so much about how to make great art and what these great artists were all about. And it was also a very tough environment. First of all, it was at that time about 99% male. And those men did not hold back from what would today be considered abuse. But in that time, we called it an apprenticeship in training.
Ah,
And the reason that they had to do it that way was because we were on the line working with the most demanding artists in the world. And when I was an assistant engineer working with those engineers, they had to know that they could trust me. It was like being in a war. You're in the trenches. You got to know that that guy sitting next to you is going to come through when you really need it. So they were very, very tough. Um, but it was also an extraordinary learning experience. By the time I was done with that training, I was a world-class engineer working with these artists. Uh, However, it was also a world of, as the cliche goes, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And After several years in the business, I found myself completely lost. I was at that point relegated to producing and writing and singing jingles for toy commercials, and I did not want my tombstone to read brainwash small children into buying plastic for a living.
Mm.
I had destroyed a marriage with infidelities, and I was getting high just about every day. And I was looking at my life and the shambles that I had created, and I felt completely lost. And I was 37 years old at that point, and I was out to dinner with some friends, moaning and groaning about my life, not knowing what to do. What should I do with my life? And there was a woman there who had a migraine headache. She was crashed out on the table. She lifted her head and she said, "Go to Ellis Island." Now, for those of your listeners who don't know, Ellis Island is an island in New York Harbor where millions of immigrants were processed to come into this great country, including my grandfather, who came here in 1906 at 16 years of age without a nickel in his pocket. So I took it as a sign. It was a beautiful October day. That's when my birthday is. And I went out to the island. And on the seawall are etched the names of all of the immigrants who passed through the island. And I found my grandfather's name. And I spoke to my ancestor and I said, "Grandpa, what should I do with my life?" In desperation. And I heard the voice of my grandfather, who said probably what many grandfathers have said to their grandchild: "Schmuck, go back to school." Now remember, I went right into the recording studio when I was 17 years old, so I didn't have one college credit at that point. When people that I work with as a psychotherapist and a coach now tell me that it's too late, I tell them, "Don't say that to me. I was 37 years old. I didn't have one college credit." I said to my grandfather, "I can't go back to school. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I'm 37 years old. I haven't been in school in 20 years." And then he said, I heard his voice again, and he said, "Why do you think I came to this country? I knew I was never going to make it. Why did I cross an ocean to come to this country? I came for the promise of my grandchildren. I came for you. So don't tell me that you don't have the time or the money. Work it out." I couldn't argue with that, right? So that was October. By January, I was back in school. And what I decided to study was what happened to me. How did this happen to me? Was there a way that I could fix it? And if I could figure out how I had gotten so lost and how to find myself again, maybe I could help other people do the same thing. And that has been my passion since that time for the last 30 years. And along the way of studying ancient wisdom, fairy tales, cutting edge psychology, neuroscience, I came across a quote by a Chinese sage named Mencius, who lived about 2,500 years ago. Many people consider Mencius to have been the wisest sage who ever lived. Today, almost nobody's heard of this guy. For 1,000 years, every Chinese student studied Mencius. And the quote that I found said, "Pity the man who has lost his path and does not follow it, and has lost his heart and does not go out and recover it." When people's dogs and chicks are lost, they go out and look for them. But when their hearts or original nature are lost, they do not go out and look for them. The principle of self-cultivation consists in nothing but trying to find the lost heart.
Wow.
And I heard that, right? Like anytime I say that quote, people go, "Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah," right? That's what I did. I went, "That's it. That's it.
I like it.
It's a lost heart thing." Right? So then, of course, this beautiful, evocative statement asks more questions than it answers, which is, what is the heart? What does it look like to have a lost heart? How do we lose the heart? And most importantly, how do we find the heart again? And now I figured out the answer to all those questions. And that's what led me to create this online self-cultivation course that I call Heartfinders.
That's a fantastic story. If you would have stopped the story at I was 37 and went back to school, I would have
Right?
stood up and applauded for you because just that, just that, brother, is out of this world. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. I
Um,
should say that I got
wow.
a master's and a PhD and have written a book and yeah, that was
Wow.
the whole thing.
Okay, just more to unpack. Thanks, I appreciate that. Let me put that right on the list here.
Right.
We'll knock it out. I want to ask you. I saw something about Mencius, so I had an idea that was an influence of yours. The idea, however, of self-cultivation.
Yeah.
Now, does that also come from Mencius, or is that something that you have sort of put together and created?
Yeah. So that last sentence, the principle of self-cultivation consists in nothing but trying to find the lost heart. So what he's telling us is that the way to find the heart is through this thing called self-cultivation. So what is self-cultivation? It comes from agriculture, right? So
Okay.
back in the day, they figured out that if you could understand the laws of nature, you could get a great yield of food. You didn't have to go out into the woods and find a berry or a nut. You wouldn't have to chase an animal for 3 days on the veldt. If you understood the laws of nature, you could exploit those laws and grow all the food that you needed. This created civilizations. People got bigger, stronger, smarter, and changed the world. So these wise people from the past thought to themselves, if you could do that with a plant, could you do that with yourself? Could you learn the laws of reality, the universal laws of reality, the laws of nature, the laws of human nature, apply them to yourselves, and then cultivate yourself to become the best human that you could possibly be? Now, there's a word, a Greek word. Uh, while the Chinese were doing that in China, the Greeks were doing it in Greece, the Indians were doing it. It was happening all over the world about 2,500 years ago. And there was a guy that we know named Aristotle, one of the great philosophers from Greece. And he had a word, entelechy. And what entelechy means is that which you are meant to be.
Hmm.
So we as living things don't end up the way we start out. Within the acorn lies the mighty oak tree. And if you give that acorn the proper sunlight, soil, and water, it will become what it's meant to be. It will achieve its entelechy. It'll become the oak tree. So we too have an entelechy. We have something that we're meant to be. It's a little more complicated than an oak tree. And now, if we cultivate ourselves, if we learn that proper metaphorical sunlight, soil, and water, then we are going to become our best selves, which is what we are meant to be. So that what they figured out in the phrase self-cultivation is that for the plant needs a farmer. We don't need a farmer. We can actually do this for ourselves. So if you can learn those laws of human nature, those laws of nature, if you can apply them to yourselves and follow those laws, then that's how we become our best self. And that's when you feel great about yourself and find peace of mind and fulfillment.
All those things we're all looking for every single
Which,
day.
right,
Trying to
right,
figure out where to find them. Absolutely. I
exactly.
love the idea of self cultivation. Cultivation. When I first heard it, I started thinking, okay, what is cultivation? I hadn't talked to
Yeah,
you yet, so I'm going through my head, going, well, cultivation is when you provide something everything that it needs in order to grow and flourish
precisely.
as it's supposed to, right? So
Exactly.
self cultivation means you're simply providing that for yourself and you're not depending on others to give you that nourishment and condition. So,
Yeah,
so I'm getting it, and I'm going, okay. I love this theory. I love this idea.
yeah,
And then you talked about a couple other things. I'm not sure how they fit in, and so maybe you can connect the dots for me.
yeah,
The I know that you had three attributes that were needed in order to engage in self cultivation, but then
yeah,
you also talked about six attributes of the heart.
yeah,
So, however you need to, form the story to connect those dots, I'm
yeah,
at your mercy.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, I don't actually know what oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay, I know what those things are now. So let's talk about the six attributes of the heart. So what I've discovered is that people who are stuck, and let's say that what it looks like to have a lost heart is to be stuck in your life. So that natural process of becoming that which you are meant to be is somehow arrested. It's not happening. And that's the way that I would define stuckness and having a lost heart,
Okay.
right? And we know that so many of us struggle with this. And for we know that when we see the problems that men are facing in the world today, right? The rise of suicide and alcohol and drug use and depression, loneliness. All of these things are affecting so many men. There's something going on in the world that is contributing to this. That these are some of the indicators that somebody is stuck, that somebody has a lost heart. And what I've been able to do is I've been able to define six main characteristics that stuck people have. And those six characteristics are number one, shame. Shame is the feeling that goes along with the belief that somehow I don't measure up as a human being. So it can take an individual form. I'm stupid, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy, I'm broken. Those are the individual versions of it, but the underlying of feeling of shame is what's common, and it seems to be common to so many human beings. We could talk about how people develop that shame. So that's the first characteristic. The second characteristic is fear. So people avoid because they're afraid, and they're afraid because they don't believe they have what it takes because of that shame. So you can see how these characteristics are actually connected. The third characteristic is bad habits. So, it's much easier to eat the donut than to go to the gym, right? It's much easier. It's much easier to get high than to, you know, get off the couch and do what it takes to make your life better, right?
Right.
So those habits get deeply ingrained, and the culture and the world that we live in is built around addicting people, right? It's because that's the way our culture makes money. And these handheld devices that we all carry around now, we're all addicted to them.
Hmm.
They're regulating our brain chemistry. They're using those techniques to get us hooked, right? So people will scroll for 5 hours a day rather than read a book or do something to make their life fundamentally better. So those bad habits are the third characteristic that I see, whether it's internet porn or online gambling or scrolling or whatever those things are, drugs, alcohol. The fourth characteristic of stuck people is negativity. I was just sitting with a guy earlier today. We were at sort of the beginning part of our process, and he said, I'm cynical because there's a part of me that just doesn't believe it's ever going to work out for me, right? And the world is an unfriendly place. So people who are stuck tend to have that belief. And if you don't believe anything's going to work out for you, and the world is never going to cooperate with you, the world is against you, then you might as well just get high, avoid doing anything, and feel crappy about yourself. So again, you're seeing how they all kind of fit
Right.
together.
Yep.
The next characteristic, the fifth one, is incuriosity. Our school system has done something really bad for most people where they're afraid to learn. They've either they've either somehow learned that they're stupid, or that learning is boring, or whatever it is. It's very hard for stuck people to recognize that you get good at something by learning. I heard a quote from Dan Kennedy, a great marketing guy, yesterday, who said that poor people have big TVs and rich people have big libraries, right? They're willing to learn every day. But if you don't believe in yourself and you don't think it's going to make any difference, why would you do that? And the
Right.
sixth characteristic is poor self-care, right? Generally speaking, stuck people, they don't take good care of themselves. They don't eat well, they don't sleep well, they abuse their bodies in different ways. So once I recognized those six characteristics of stuck people, then I asked myself the question, well, what do you do about that? How do you self-cultivate? How do you work on yourself to change those characteristics?
Right.
And that's where I define the six attributes of the heart. Um, if you're still with me here. So
Oh
the
yeah,
first,
absolutely.
so the first one, I said it that the quality is shame. So uh, you have to develop self-compassion. right? People who have shame beat themselves up. They think that if they beat themselves up, they're going to do something, right? But it doesn't work. Beating yourself up, you don't yell at the plant because it's not growing fast enough, right? You don't yell at your kid when they're learning how to walk, telling them they're stupid and klutzy. No, right?
Right.
You encourage, you nurture, you have patience, you're kind, you're gentle. So we have to learn how to do that for ourselves, right? The second thing is to cultivate courage, right? To do this, learn and practice doing the scary thing instead of avoiding. It takes practice. Eleanor Roosevelt said, do something scary every day. The main thing we're scared of is being humiliated. So if you're willing to, you took a risk. You said, I'm going to do this 5 times a week, right? You didn't know how that was going to work out. That's
Right.
a scary thing, right? You do that. Maybe it wouldn't have worked out, right? And maybe you would have felt embarrassed, right? But you were willing to do that. And in the act of doing that, two things happen. One, you develop self-esteem. You heal some of that shame because you had the courage to do that. And then a good thing happens, right? It actually works out, right? And then that feels great,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, but the people who avoid and never do that, nothing ever happens, and then they get and then that habit of that avoidance becomes a habit, right? The habit of avoidance. The third thing is I call it the attribute of the heart strength, which is the ability to do what you don't want to do and to not do what you want to do. Instead of eating the donut, you go to the gym, right? Right?
Okay.
Instead of vaping, do something you do, you develop a good habit for yourself, right? And that's a really hard thing to for people to do, to change a bad habit into a good habit. That takes practice. That takes cultivation. The fourth attribute of the heart that I talk about is imagination. We know that mental rehearsal, you perform better when you practice mentally, when you visualize. Visualization is not just some woo-woo thing that you're going to find a parking space because you visualized it. It's you had to have visualized what you're doing right now to bring this into manifestation, right? You had a vision and then you implemented the vision and it's working, right? We're here together
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
we both envision something. And if and we habitually and unconsciously visualize negative things, oh, it'll never work out for me. The world is against me. That takes no effort, but it takes conscious cultivation in order to um, visualize positively, to develop that faith that things are going to work out for you. And that's the only way you're actually going to ever do anything. The fifth attribute of the heart is wisdom, which means learning something every day, right? I wouldn't be able to say everything that I'm saying. Confucius said 2,500 years ago that he invented nothing, that he learned from the masters who came before him. So there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that I'm saying in my way, but it's all things that I've learned. I've learned from the great masters. I've learned from my own experience. I've learned from the clients that I've worked with. We don't, pop out fully formed. So that's something that needs to be cultivated. And then when you cultivate that attribute, well, then you get good at things. And then the sixth attribute of the heart is self-love, right? Is treating your body in a sacred way. As it's been said, that this is our temple. And if you want energy to be able to live your best life, you better take care of yourself. So those are the six attributes of the heart.
Love it. As you're reading these off, and of course I'm self-actualizing, I guess. I'm putting in my head and going, all right, and how do I do that? Or do I have a problem with that? And where am I? And I'm sure all the other men listening to this, they're all doing the same thing.
Yes,
And, I mean, even just the last one, which is one of the easiest ones out there, self-love.
right,
That's not how we were raised. You
No.
know what I mean? The Gen X guys, a lot of
No.
the guys I talk to, we were not raised for self-love.
No.
We were raised exactly like you were saying. The coaches didn't go, "Oh, hey, good job." They were
Right.
like, "How come you didn't do that better? Get up, go harder, run,
Right.
attack that tree." Da da da. I mean,
Right.
that's how we were all raised. So
Yeah.
we've had to learn how to teach that to our kids,
Yeah.
and a lot of us have done that, I think, and really
Yes.
successfully taught something that we didn't ever have.
Right.
But where do you even start with people who just simply hear something like that and go, "Yeah, I don't know about that one,"
Right.
right? I mean, when you go up and down the attribute, it's like, okay, well, I might have one out of those six
Right.
that work,
Right. Right. Right.
So, I mean, do you just say, all right, I need these, and you make a decision and you try to come up with how to do them? Is there a method for how you get around, not having those in your own mind to start with?
Yes. 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 So that's where we get to those three things that we were talking before. So in order to
Ah,
self-cultivate, you got to do three things. You've got to learn those universal laws of reality. And so in the course, I provide about 25 videos. People come into therapy, and the truth is, most people come into therapy because they want to be heard. And there's a healing in being heard. So they'll spend 90% of the session talking. But what are they actually learning? They get a little healing from doing that, but they're coming in with problems in their life that they want to solve. So, and maybe I'll offer a little morsel in that last 5 minutes that they can take with them. And we can only take in so much at any one time. I'm probably saying way too much today.
you're doing
Um,
great.
um, so this is a way that they can actually learn more in a few hours than they would in 10 years of therapy. um, uh, because I consolidate all this wisdom and knowledge. And so to learn about what those attributes are, to learn about those universal laws of reality, to learn the instruction manual for the game of life. How are you going to win the game if you don't know how the game is played? If you put me out on a golf course right now and you said, hit that ball over there, I wouldn't be able to do it because I don't know the rules. I don't know how to play. And and the second part of it is practice. So people will often say to me in our work together, well, what do I do? So to make it easy for them, I've put together about 60 exercises so they don't have to think about it. They just do the next exercise. And these are the methods of self-cultivation in these exercises. The third component is support. You can't do this by yourself. Men, they don't know how to do that.
Right.
They don't know how to get there are women in my course. I have one part that's for men, and then there's another part that women could participate in. They know how to do it. They know how to connect with each other. The guys, it's really a struggle to accept, embrace getting support, but you can't, no warrior wins the war by themselves. And it's just a tried and true fact that if you're trying to grow and accomplish anything, you need the support of other men. So I run a weekly group with men, a beautiful group of men who are working to become their best self, and the support that they give each other is absolutely a necessary component. So those are the three ways that I lead people into these things. So I'll just say one more thing about the self-love piece, which is we did a wonderful exercise a couple of weeks ago where, and these men know each other now, fairly well. I said, I want each one of you to tell your biggest vision for another member, right? Because it's so hard for us to do it for ourselves.
Hmm.
So, one guy will say to another guy, I see you on stage doing your comedy routine because you're so funny. You're so, and I know you're just going to kill it when you're up there, and then you're going to be at Comedy Central, and then you're going to have a Netflix special or whatever the thing is, something along those lines. And the guy who's taking that in, he's getting a little bit of that love from outside. And maybe a little bit of that is going to grow on the inside because nobody says that we don't say that to each other.
Yeah.
I believe in you. I see what's best in you. I know you're going to do it. So that's one of the ways that when you don't know how to do it for yourself, you get it from somebody else.
Nice. Nice. That makes sense. I mean, that rings true,
Right?
as well. So
Yeah.
that, wow. Um, I mean, this with any sort of help that you're aiming towards men, I imagine you encounter some resistance on this.
You said the word. You said the word. The hardest part is getting somebody to press the button. This is the conundrum, honestly, that nobody has figured out since that Mencius wasn't able to figure out, that I'm working on every single day. Getting people to start and continue are the hardest things. Have you read The War of Art by Pressfield?
I just started reading that about overcoming resistance. Yeah, my son
Oh,
got it for
overcome.
me for Christmas. Yeah.
Right, right. And one of the things he says is the bigger the goal, the more resistance you're going to feel. The stronger the resistance you feel, the more it's an indication that that's the very thing that you should be doing, because that's how important that thing is. But resistance is, yeah, it's a formidable force. There are parts. I talk about the tyrant and the rebel. We have different parts within us. And those parts within us, that shaming, undermining gremlin, who's telling you, who is that force of resistance, who's saying you can't, you won't, it will never, whatever that gremlin is saying, it's like a living being. It doesn't want to die. So it will do whatever it has to do to undermine you and prevent you from becoming your best self. And you know, it's me against the gremlin, and it's not an easy job.
I imagine. I imagine. I'm picturing, like I said, I always imagine what's my audience thinking, because if
Right.
I'm thinking it, somebody else out there is thinking it too.
Yeah.
And so as I'm sitting here, I'm going, okay, I mean, this sounds great.
Right.
And it makes really good sense.
Yeah.
Um, the, the cost of entry,
Yeah.
to a man to be able to say that, and the resistance that comes along with it.
Yeah.
That's that's going to be formidable, no matter
Yes.
what.
Right.
Um, the is this sort of the core of your practice? I'm curious, or do you treat other conditions, and this is just part of what you do?
Yeah, this is just part of this is a real passion of mine. I think that most people come in, are stuck in some way. They're resistant, as well. And it can manifest in so many ways. And people will come in with their historical wounds. And that's something that we often have to treat or deal with as well, and whatever their life circumstances are. And right now, there are concrete ways that life is really difficult. Life is expensive, and the workplace is difficult. And I work with a lot of artists, and the world of the arts is really troubled. So we also have to deal with those concrete. I don't want to in any way diminish those realities that we and men are facing. So the question is, well, what are we going to do about it? Right? We can kind of roll over and bemoan it and complain and blame but as the Stoics say, that we can't determine the hand that we're dealt, but we can determine how we play that hand.
Absolutely.
And I just believe, and I think you probably believe as well, if I can speak for you, and you can tell me why you're doing this, right? Is that this is really important, and so uh, I know that um, the life of that we lead and the life of men, and knowing how so many men are suffering, I want to be able to do the little thing that I can do to help people in whatever way I can. So if I encounter resistance or doubt or any of those things, I'm willing to persevere. Um, uh, because this is something that I really believe in that I think is so important.
As you go through this with the people who sign up for your coaching groups,
Yeah,
and as people go through your course and your process, what are some of the, because maybe this helps overcome the resistance a little bit,
yeah,
what are some of the tangible benefits for men that are out there if they can go through this, if they can, dig deep,
right.
find a way to connect with some of these principles? What are some of
Yes,
the tangible benefits on the other side for them that
yes,
make it worth the trip?
yes. Great question. Thank you for asking that. So we talked about the 6 ways that people are stuck, the 6 attributes for self-cultivation. And what do you get, right? So if you cultivate um, self-compassion, instead of shame, you're going to have pride. You're going to start feeling good about yourself. If you cultivate courage, you're actually going to do things. You're going to get things done. And if you start getting things done, that's going to increase your pride. And if you're cultivating strength and you're getting rid of those bad habits, you're going to have freedom. You're going to have agency in your life. You're going to be able to be in choice. When you're addicted, you're out of choice. And when you're free of those things, now you have freedom in your life. And if you have freedom in your life and you're not sitting around getting high all the time, you're going to get more stuff done and you're going to feel better about yourself. And if you're cultivating imagination, right, you're going to have confidence. You're going to, instead of doubting yourself, you're going to feel confident. And if you feel confident, then you're going to be more courageous to do things, which is going to lead you to feel better about yourself. And if you're cultivating wisdom, you're going to get good at things. You're going to become able. And if you start getting good at things, you're going to be more courageous and you're going to feel better about yourself, right? And you're going to tend to want to do things that are better for yourself. And if you take care of yourself, if you cultivate self-love, you're going to be healthy. And if you're healthy, you're going to have energy. And that's going to increase your ability to learn and to be more confident and to get more stuff done. And then when you're getting stuff done, and then you're going to succeed in life. You're going to feel good about yourself. And that's the road to fulfillment and peace of mind. And then, and here's the big secret, is that if you do all of those things, then you're going to be able to do something to make the world a better place. And that's what really gives us a sense of fulfillment when we're living in service, when we're activated in that way, when we're at the top of our energy, when we're at the top of our game, and we can actually give something back and make the world a better place. That's really the key to fulfillment.
Like that. So your course and this entire process is sort of the bridge between, stuck and service.
Exactly.
Like it very,
I
very
like that.
much.
I'm going to steal that sentence. That's
That's all
good.
yours. That's all yours. But no, I like that a lot. I know there's a lot of men out there that I talk to regularly who, they'd love to go serve. They'd love to volunteer. They'd love to do more. They'd love to, share their gifts or their talents,
Yeah,
more. Um, and it just ends up getting, it's not even, of course, I don't have time or I can't do this or I can't afford it.
right.
But the bottom line to all of it is, well, who am I to go do this?
Right.
It all comes down to self-worth, self-value, all those
Exactly.
things that we don't have.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's a common problem with men, which is
right.
why I really wanted to dig into this today.
Yeah. You know, so many people online will sell, you're going to make $1 million. You're going to get the Lambo,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's nice and it's a good sell and there's nothing wrong with getting stuff and being financially successful at that level. I'm not putting it down, but um what we're talking about now, I believe is far more realistic and actually better. So one of my guys that I work with, I just got a thing from the Big Brothers and Big Sisters organization. He's applied to become a mentor for somebody, and they asked me for a reference kind of thing. Um, and that's what it's about. Yes, of course, you want to make enough money to support your family or your lifestyle or whatever it is you want to do, work that's fulfilling, that you love, that you're good at, that you can make enough money at. And that's something that he found the confidence, as you're saying, to reach out and say, this is something that I want to do. And that's so much more of a path to peace of mind and fulfillment than getting the Lamborghini.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind a Lamborghini, you
I
know.
wouldn't mind it either. I might go for a
Certain.
Porsche instead.
Oh, you're a Porsche guy. All
Yeah.
right. Got it. All right. Just being modest. All right. I
Right?
understand.
Exactly.
No, I mean, this is great information. It really is. I love to be able to put, you know, I don't want to say labels, but to be able to kind of categorize some of the
Hmm.
things that guys are going through, so at least they can recognize, some of these things. I think that your work does a lot for that, and
Yeah.
that way, guys aren't just sitting there feeling like, "Hey, I'm stuck, and I
Right.
don't know why, and I don't know what to
Right.
do." They can go, "Well, maybe it's this, and if
Yeah.
it's this, then maybe I need to focus on that."
Right.
If we can ever find a pathway out
Right.
of the pit we feel like we're in, then maybe we can see the sunlight at some point. But that's the challenge that lies with people like you then, I think, is how do you
Yeah.
get guys like us that are just stuck and mired in
Yeah.
there, because I can go, hey, this sounds great. Now
Right.
what?
Right. Right.
Now what the heck do I do?
There's two things I want to say about that. One is that one thing that we're talking about that's sort of in the common language at the moment is this difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. So fixed mindset means this is the way that I am, and there's nothing I can do about it. Well, all right, let's go out, let's shoot up some heroin, screw it. Right?
Right.
Growth mindset is that we're always capable of growing and learning, that the brain is plastic. And that's where that notion of self-cultivation comes in. Oh, there's actually something I can do myself with the support of others that will lead to my growth and development. I don't have to be stuck. I don't have to be the way that I am today. There's actually a method that I can do, and there's wisdom that's thousands of years old that says if you work on yourself, something good will happen, right? They must know what they were talking about, right? The other thing that I want to say is that I applaud any man who walks into my office or is willing to do something like this. Most men would rather jump out of a window than engage in a process like this, right? Oh, and to
Yeah.
go and be in a room with other men and to be vulnerable,
Right.
they'd rather do anything other than that, right? So when a guy comes to me, I praise him and I applaud him because it takes that in and of itself is such an act of courage to say yes to something like this.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, the because we talk about this in some of our groups and stuff. There are guys who actually believe that they don't have a purpose.
Right.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm just here, and
Yeah.
it's my job to provide, raise the kids, and die.
Right.
You know what I mean? Are you one who believes that every man is here for a purpose and has a purpose to fulfill? Maybe is called, in some fashion, or is it possible that we're really just here to, you know, live till we die and then die?
Here's what I'll say about that. We don't know, right? But
Okay.
which one is going to give you a better life, right? If you believe that we're just random billiard balls and we eat shit and die or whatever, what's the quality of your life going to be like? But if you believe that you're here for a purpose and that you have a purpose, you have a dharma, as they call it, there's a reason that you're here. Well, then your life is going to be a lot better. And guess what? If you believe that, you're going to find it. And again, it doesn't have to be maybe for you it is supporting your family. Maybe it is being a different kind of father than you had, right? Maybe it is, again, it doesn't have to be some kind of thing that becomes world famous. There are so many men who do the right thing every day, who are unheralded, right? Who are, fame is not all that it's cracked up to be, right?
Right.
Uh, but we don't celebrate uh, the regular guy who is struggling to do his best. And
Yeah,
that can be a purpose in and of itself. And that's one of the reasons I also love the group, because if you feel like you don't have a purpose, when you are there supporting other men, that's a purpose because we're all struggling in this together. There's a community component to the platform that my course is on, the school platform, SKOOL, where the members of the course support each other. So instead of, I don't know, being on something that you're scrolling, you put something inspirational on there and maybe it moves somebody, right?
nice.
You offer some words of your own story and your own struggle, and maybe that makes somebody else feel a little inspired.
Good
So
deal.
even in a small way, of course, we can all find a purpose.
Love the way you handled that question. I'm officially a fan. I loved it. And you wrote a book too. Now, is the book about what we've been talking about, or is the book about your time as a in the music business?
Yeah, so the book is called Never Say No to a Rock Star, in the
Right.
studio with Dylan, Sinatra, Jagger, and more.
There it
Is it
is. All
called
right.
Never Say No to a Rock Star? Yeah, and it's my memoir of my days in the studio. Some some funny stories in there, some heartwarming stories, and what it was really like to be in that world of brutal men who beat the crap out of me every day.
I love it. So if anybody wants to, read that book, about you back in the day, before you became such the wise old sage that you are now,
Yeah.
where do they find that? Is it on Amazon and the regular
They can
places,
find it
or?
on Amazon, and if they contact me as a result of our conversation, if they sign up for my course, I will give them a free copy of the book.
Oh, there you go. All right. Good deal.
No
Um,
bonus.
and then the course is, and I know you've talked about the course on and off, but just a quick synopsis. How long, what's it entail in case somebody's interested, and what's broad strokes of what it looks like?
Yeah, yeah. So, as I said, the course has three components. It's got the knowledge part, the 25 videos. It's got over 60 exercises. It has the support component. I do a bi-weekly live kind of giving the lesson in person. And I'm also willing to do sort of short version check-ins. For certain members under certain circumstances. And it's really an ongoing thing for as long as you need to do it. It's a subscription model on a monthly basis, and you stay in it as long as you want to do it, and as much as you're getting something out of it. So
Beautiful.
there's really no time limit.
And I have two links for you that I'm going to be putting into the show notes. One is the school community, of course, and one is the Heartfinders. Which one of those do they go to for the course information?
So if you still want more information, you can go to goheartfinders.co, and you can watch a longer video there to get some more information on this, a lot of what we've actually talked about today.
Mhm.
Or you can set up a phone call with me where we can discuss it some more. If you want to just join up to the course, then go to that school link.
Good deal. Excellent. Excellent. I appreciate everything you've had to say here today. I want to give you sort of one shot to throw out one last little pearl to everybody. We talked about a lot,
Yeah,
and I mean I appreciate you just coming in here with your A game and laying it all out for everybody.
yeah.
A lot of these guys listening are sitting there taking notes. I know, and they're going, "Man, this sounds way too much like me right now." So, there's a lot of that guilt and shame happening in households, around the world right now listening to
Yes,
this.
yeah,
But and again, I do appreciate that. If there's anything that we didn't touch on yet, that I
yeah.
that I didn't bring up, that we didn't get a chance to talk about, that you want to throw out there, maybe a parting thought or a last piece of advice, I will give you the floor for your last shot.
Well, I'm going to turn that back onto you, Rory. So what,
No one's ever done that before.
what,
Hey, all right.
so what inspires you? What has inspired you to do this?
My history. Yeah,
Yeah.
the folks who listen to our program know my story.
Yeah.
It's horrible childhood, blah blah blah, bad
Yeah.
dad, yada yada, beat
Yeah.
up, and then rising up and making it, and then losing it all and
Yeah.
having to do it again. And
Right.
so in all of those times, though, being alone.
Hmm.
And so I really started this entire thing
Yeah.
because I wanted to do something
Yeah.
somehow so that even if one guy was going through what I was going through,
Right.
uh, and he didn't feel alone because he heard my voice or my story, then all of the stuff I went through meant something. And that was thousands and thousands of people ago, thank God. And it's
Yes.
worked out very, very well in terms of getting the message out. So
Right.
I'm truly blessed in that way. But
Yeah.
it that's what this is all about and where it comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. So, your story tells us what's possible, right? And I think that that's really the message that I would like to leave with is that if you're feeling in despair, if you're feeling hopeless, uh, you, Rory, and I are proof of what's possible, right? We're just regular folks who have been inspired by our own stories. You know, the one part of my story that I didn't tell was that before I went into the studio, my dad died when I was 15, and when he was dying, he said to me that he'd never done anything with his life other than have his kids. And that scared the crap out of me. And I never wanted to say in my own life that I never did anything with my life. And that was rocket fuel. That's what got me into the studio within 2 years. And that was my beginning, working class dad who felt like a failure. So if you and I can do it, Rory, I speaking to the men out there, you can do it also. That
Yeah.
there's way more possible than you might be believing at this moment. Believe in the possible.
Love that. Thank you, Dr. Berger. I appreciate that very much. No one's ever flipped the script on me before. I leave it to a psychotherapist to flip me around like that. Thanks a lot. That was great.
You did great. You did
That
great.
was
You
that was
you
great. Did I pass? All right, I'm okay.
you did it, man, and
All
you did it
right.
very beautifully.
My wife is going to watch this episode. She's going to just be laughing at me on the couch. Just be like, "Oh, look what he did to you." No, that's great. Sir, I can't thank you enough for coming on today, having a very frank and open discussion about stuff that really does matter to husbands and fathers out there. I'm sure that there's people in my audience right now who are getting quite a bit from this. And,
I hope so.
that's because of the work that you're doing. So keep it up. It matters. It's important.
Thank you so much, Rory. This has been a great pleasure for me, and I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks. Gentlemen, and a few ladies who listen, this has been another episode of the Power Man podcast. And let me sort of reiterate what Dr. Berger just said. If men like us can do it, you know what? So can you. There's nothing superhuman about either one of us. And we'd be the first ones to tell you that. Gentlemen, you matter. You have value. And that's the reason why we do what we do. You can do anything. You can make it happen. You just have to believe it. Until next time.